Hello artists, Thomas here, and here is some Monday afternoon positivity, because I know that sometimes as artists we can get quite negative and overly critical about our work. So I kind of just wanted to put out some positive vibes out there and maybe some rules or tips that I kind of use for myself when I slip into sometimes maybe a bit of negativity here and there. Even as a very stubbornly positive person myself, I understand that humans always have ups and downs, and some people have more downs than ups. So I want to make those downs into ups, and I'm going to tell you what works for me. Just as a side note, I guess, I kind of wondered, it seems like a lot of artists seem to struggle with darkness or kind of dark thoughts and negativity, even when you look at kind of, I guess, the history of artists and their mental health. It doesn't always seem to kind of look on the positive side. I guess a lot of famous artists have had tragic deaths, but I think it's probably because the way I see it is artists look at the world a lot, and the world can be a pretty dark place sometimes. So maybe it's kind of overthinking when it comes to that darkness and not seeing the positive side of things after looking for... Okay, I'm gonna stop rambling, and now for the practical advice. So I'm not only just going to give some advice on staying positive, but you know me, I like to kind of mix up positivity, conceptual stuff with actual practical advice. So it's going to be a mix of the two in this video. So my first piece of advice or tip or rule or whatever you want to call it is understanding that being critical of your work is a fantastic thing. Having a critical mind and constantly looking at your work in the perspective of kind of, how do I change this? How do I improve? This is fantastic. You need to draw the line when it becomes overly negative, or your mind starts to tell you things like, generic things like, my work is crap, I can't do this, I'm not improving. All of these kinds of negative thoughts are not going to benefit you as an artist, and they're not going to push you anywhere. Actually, when you think like this and you accept these thoughts, that's the moment where you start moving away from your artwork, moving away from progress, and actually by allowing these thoughts to affect your practice, you're going to be taking steps backward rather than taking steps forward. So what you need to kind of really understand is you need to change the thoughts of I can't do this into I am learning right now, I am on a journey, I am on a kind of this is a process of getting better and better and better and better. And remember that a journey doesn't begin at the end. So don't expect the journey to begin at the end and expect your work to be, a finished masterpiece, especially while we're so young, or because I know that majority of my audience is quite young, or if you are not even, young, you are still at the beginning of an artistic journey. So to summarize that is my first rule. Just think of this learning process, journey. With any learning process or journey, you don't begin at the end. You start at the beginning and you're further than what you began as, or if you're just starting out now, then this is some good positivity you need to hear. So for my second tip, I'm going to relate it more to painters, but I'm sure if you're working in a different medium, then you can certainly apply this tip in your own context. So that is, I'm speaking about the first layer of a painting now. Sometimes when you start on artwork, you're really positive, you feel like you're fired up with a new idea, and you do the first layer of a painting, and you're like, yeah, this is gonna be so good. And then you go to sleep and you wake up the next day and you look at it and you wanna slice it up, you wanna throw it out the window, you wanna hide it behind the sofa, whatever, you wanna destroy that thing. Because now you have a fresh eye on it and the energy is no longer there, and you realize mistakes, or you just don't think it looks good. And this is going to sound silly, but remember that it's the first layer. Remember that whatever you're doing, it's early on in the artistic process. And on top of that, you learn from mistakes. If you're making mistakes and you're recognizing mistakes, this is an extremely positive thing. Whether you take them in a negative sense or whether you learn from them, those are the two different paths you can go down. And I'll tell you, the better path is to learn from your mistakes and then improve. And once you notice them and improve on that, then you will progress. So remember, this rule is basically, if you're early on in the artistic process, if you're making a piece of work and it's early on, then make sure that you realize it's not supposed to look amazing early on, and don't kind of give up on something or destroy it before it's even, I guess, finished to a certain extent. Now, some works, yes, you can put aside. Some things maybe you just test and you're like, no, this isn't going to work. And that's kind of an instinctual thing, not a kind of overly critical negative thing. So make sure you can kind of try and tell the difference and push through with some paintings just to learn from your mistakes and realize how you can progress your work further. Just as a side note, to help you kind of prevent these more kind of negative or strange situations where you're looking at a work and you're like, I'm unsure about it, work on your planning process. Work on how you plan a piece of work, make sure you're going deep into your subject, make sure you understand the material that you're using, and this helps, I guess, avoid the situations where you're early on in the process and you're like, this is so ugly. Usually when you know your material and you understand your subject better, you will feel more motivated because you have that final product, you have that vision in mind of where you're going to go with that piece of work. And that kind of ties into my third tip, where I'm going to speak about now your practice in your subject and kind of what you're interested in. One thing that's going to really help you be more positive and kind of more enthusiastic about your work is to really kind of investigate and kind of do as much as you can to kind of, I guess, compile information about what you're interested in and study it to a deeper level. So one way I would say to do this, you don't have to read books or watch documentaries or read classical literature on whatever you're interested in. Sometimes it's just about drawing the subject that you're interested in. I think drawing is a fantastic way. Everyone knows this about my channel. I talk about drawing again and again and again and again, and the reason why I constantly repeat it is because genuinely I think it is that helpful for an artist to really just draw and have a relationship with drawing, because the benefits of understanding how to draw and what it does for your observational skills and your kind of your artistic mind is just, there's nothing that really compares to really understanding drawing and how to look at something. Because when you're drawing something, you're going to be looking at it closely, you're going to be thinking about things that you would have not otherwise thought about if you didn't do the drawing. So I do have a video on kind of 5 ways to instantly improve your drawing. I did that recently. So check out my library of videos. We're expanding now, we're almost at 500 subscribers. This is a very interesting journey I'm going on with this YouTube channel alone, but drawing, and remember, study that subject that you're interested in. Know the material that you're kind of working with. Don't just kind of try and work everything out yourself, and go to people who are better than you. Learn from YouTube, learn from books, learn from whatever, I guess drives you or is comfortable for you to work from, and then take those steps to improve subject and material and therefore your practice. Tip number 4, or piece of advice number 4, or whatever I'm calling this. This is another practical one. Now, I realize that this is something that I've fallen into, and I see other people fall into sometimes as well, particularly when I was at university, and that is your inspirations. Now, it's fantastic to, look at a whole range of kind of artwork or whatever you're interested in. I always think that exposing yourself to as much as possible is always beneficial. But when it comes to your own practice, my advice is try and narrow down maybe 5, your top favorite kind of 5 works or artists that you're really, really interested in, and learn from them. Copy them, steal from them, learn to take elements of their work and put it in your own work. Because when you study artists that kind of, I guess you aspire to be like, by copying, stealing, taking elements or whatever, you're learning from their practice and working out their process and really trying to understand how they're producing the aesthetic that they produce, or however they might be making their work. Now, if you have too many artists, you see, you might just be trying to take from too much, and you won't be studying that kind of smaller group. So you won't be able to really understand how to produce something at a deeper level. Now, I would say even go less than 5. Maybe if you choose 1 or 2 at a time and really try and understand and take from their work, you will see a fantastic improvement, whether it be working out a painting process or understanding color scheme, composition, the way an artist might go about making something, because some artists are much more difficult to work out than others. Some are much more secretive, some are much more open. Now, bear in mind, if there are some contemporary artists that you're interested in, try and contact them. They're still alive. You know, some, for example, I know a lot of people take inspiration off some Instagram artists. So, and like there are a lot of contemporary successful painters and whatnots or other artists on Instagram. You can just send a DM. Now, I've DM'd people and I've commented and had replies. So just don't worry about it. Be respectful, be enthusiastic. You know, drop a kind comment or two when you're asking the questions. And believe me, these people reply. And if they don't, so what? You tried. And just maybe if you don't get them in the DM, then set notifications for their posts and try to be those first 10 or 20 comments, and sometimes, you know, the creator replies. So just give that a shot. Just remember that maybe if you were in a more successful position and you had enthusiastic young artists kind of messaging you, would you feel like, oh, who are these things that are messaging? No, you would probably, you know, do your best to reply to a few. Maybe if you got too many messages, you might not be able to reply to all of them. So don't worry, if they don't reply, it's not because they hate you. So I like to end my videos sometimes with a bit of generic advice. And this is, I think, important advice for anyone who wants to chase maybe a successful career, because being an artist and living as an artist and selling your work it's going to take hard work, and you need to be in a good place to kind of work towards that. So I'm going to just basically say, make sure that, you know, you're exercising, you're keeping this healthy, you're keeping this healthy. Make sure you're not consuming too much social media, not too much Netflix, because it kills the brain and it kills the heart. Keep your diet healthy. These are all very important things that keep you more in a positive place. And if you're in a positive place, then your art is going to be in a more positive place, and you're going to feel more of a drive to do work. And remember, this is so important. Do not wait for inspiration or motivation. These things are going to find you while you're doing things. You know, if you make 10 crap paintings, you're going to have more inspiration and ideas from doing those 10 crap paintings than sitting around waiting for this spectacular idea for one good painting. And then when you do that one good painting, it ends up mediocre, and then you get depressed about it or sad about it, and then you don't do another work for 2 or 3 weeks. It doesn't make sense. Just work. Just build a system where, you know, you have that structure. I'm currently actually in the process of making videos that kind of give people a process and a means of just making work, even if you're kind of maybe not inspired or motivated by anything. But once again, my advice is kind of drawing, look at the materials. You can do technical studies. You don't have to do these amazing original pieces. You can copy artists. There are so many things you can do that while you're doing it, you will start to generate your own ideas and become creative. As I said at the beginning of the video, I am an extremely stubbornly positive person. I fight with any kind of negativity that comes anywhere near me, whether that be from myself or externally. But I know everyone has bad days every now and again. Now, when you have these bad days, just don't think too much of them, okay? We can't buy our time back, but also don't get so down about being down, because otherwise it's just going to be this constant kind of beating yourself up. And, you know, it's just the reality of the human being that we have our ups and downs. So when you're at the downs, just work your way back up. And when you're at the top, try to prepare for those down days when you're at the top. So whether that be kind of creating structures, writing yourself notes, planning. A plan always goes so far, especially on a down day. If you have a good plan for a day, even if you're down and a bit low on that day, you just have something to follow. And when you have something to follow, you don't have to think much. You just do what you said. And even if you don't do all of it, at least you did something. So that's my kind of, conclusion to this positive Monday afternoon video. But really just drum these kinds of thoughts and positive, assertions into your head. this is not something that will come naturally to most. Oh my God, my windows are shaking. I know this doesn't come naturally to everyone. Sometimes you need to build up these kinds of positive assertions over time. You need to be telling yourself these kinds of things every single day. Listen to this video every single day if you need to. Hear some kind of positive messages until it just sinks into your brain, and your brain begins to understand that it's more productive and better for you just to think this way than to be overly negative about yourself. So with that, I'm going to conclude this video. I really appreciate all the support, and I thank you to all those DMing me, commenting, and watching my videos. It's why I keep doing this, and I really hope you cannot see this sweat on my head because I am roasting right now. Because for any of those who don't know, I turn off the air conditioning so I don't get this in the background while I'm making videos. But in the south of China, it's bloody hot. So yeah, I'm a bit dump right now. But I do hope my video was helpful to any of those watching, and feel free to comment, DM me on Instagram, the usual, and subscribe if you haven't already. And here is my awkward goodbye. Oh my God. Please don't ring again. Oh my